Hi, I'm Jo from the University of Southampton with the Week 2 review video for the FutureLearn course, Understanding Language, Learning and Teaching. This week we've been focusing on classrooms to a large extent. We started off the week talking about classrooms as communities of practice and classroom culture. And then we moved on to talk about various approaches to language learning and teaching. So I'm going to just highlight a few of the comments and conversations that have been posted this week. And if you missed any of them, there'll be links on this page so that you can easily pop back in there and contribute if you didn't earlier in the week. The most popular comment this week, according to FutureLearn's analytics, is the pinned comment on step 2.3 by Eric. And Eric suggests that we should view the classroom as a chance to share our stories and learn from each other. And I think that sounds like an absolutely ideal environment for learning. Is that what your classrooms are like, though? Have you experienced classes like that? Because it's certainly not the case everywhere. On the same page, on the same step, Yevgenia tells us about teachers who she's experienced, whose classes she's experienced, who are authoritative and distanced from their learners, and others have contributed to that thread and said similar things. Josh has posed a question on that thread about how or whether teacher-centred and learner-centred approaches can be combined effectively, and whether whole class and more individualised teaching can be combined. So if you're interested in that, Josh's question is waiting for your answers. There's been a lot of really productive discussion about TBLT, and I'm really glad to see that you're not restricting your comments to TBLT, but comparing and contrasting it with other approaches that you've experienced or used. We've just picked out TBLT and CLIL to focus on, and we can't cover all the possible approaches to language teaching and learning in the materials, and they're really there just to spark discussion. So, and that's what they've done this week. There's been some very good discussions. We've pinned 2 threads which have quite a few contributions on step 2.8, which were started by Anna and Sally. They're very interesting discussions, mostly about TBLT and PPP. So comparing and contrasting these approaches, and also discussing how they could be combined. But there are other comments on that thread, on that step, that are worthy of mention. So Scott asks, for example, whether TBLT is really suitable for lower level learners, and I think that's a question that's often asked because some of the examples that we see of tasks tend to be quite complex, and perhaps demand quite advanced language from learners. Anna has replied to that with a resounding yes, you can use tasks with beginners, and she's given some examples of the sort of tasks that she feels work with lower level learners. So have a look at that if you're interested, and if you have experience or ideas to add, go ahead and contribute to that discussion. And on the same step, again, Jack talks about using PPP to introduce the language that he hopes that learners will then use in a task that is coming up. And that sounds like a reasonable approach, but he finds that learners are not always able to transfer the language that they've learned in the more form-focused lessons to the tasks that he asks them to do. So what's the problem there? Are there solutions to that? Is it reasonable to expect learners to apply the language that they've just learnt to a task later in the week? Does anyone else struggle with that or have anything to add? So yeah, the other approach that we introduce with our materials is CLIL, Content and Language Integrated Learning. And in a pinned thread on step 2.12, Martine mentions cookery courses as a good opportunity for language learning and skills combined. And she suggests that the learners may have enjoyed them just because they got something tasty to eat at the end. Well, I don't think that's the case. I've also, and I don't think she believed that either, it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I've worked on cookery and nutrition focused courses with a food tech expert, and the learners always called them buy one get one free, or two for the price of one courses, because they really valued both the skills and content that they were learning and the language that was embedded. On that thread, in reply to Martine's comment, Josh has added some further ideas, and he reminds us that FutureLearn courses could be considered CLIL, if only perhaps there were a bit more embedded support for language learners. And I think that's a really reasonable suggestion, given that the participants in FutureLearn courses are international. There must be a lot of people who are not native speakers of English. So what could FutureLearn do? What could we add to some of the FutureLearn courses to provide more support for language learners? Is there something that you'd want to see? Because I think I'm talking to a lot of you, actually. Are you doing this course partly to develop your language skills and partly for the content? Or have you followed other FutureLearn courses with a dual purpose of, learning the subject knowledge and improving your language skills? Let us know if you have, and if there's anything that you think we could be doing better on these sort of courses to support you. Okay, so I think I'd better wrap up now. I've been here too long already. At the beginning of the week, Jean-Michel said he was going to stay quiet this week because it was mainly about teaching, and he's not a teacher. Jean-Michel, I'm very glad you didn't stay quiet, and I would suggest that next week as well, which is about online language teaching and learning, there may be a few parts of the materials that appear to be more relevant to teachers than learners, but the topic as a whole is very much about learning, and it's really valuable to have learners' views. I'm sure a lot of you are learning online as well as teaching online and contribute lots of really good ideas. So please don't feel you have to stay quiet if a topic is not something that you've experienced or not something that you feel expert in. Your views are still very welcome, and I look forward to the discussions in week 3. Bye for now.